It's good? Okay. I think this kind of reflects the trust that I have gained in growing readers because I'm so used to saying yes, yes, yes. And I've learned I may need to ask questions when I when I was asked to speak. But truly, I'm just appreciative, really, of this honor and this opportunity. I think when the invitation or the request was made, it was a semblance of motivation, inspiration, or something like that. But really, from my side, is more so appreciation. And that's what I honestly have come to do, to just share appreciation on behalf not only of principals like myself, but on behalf of the Gaines Elementary School and on behalf of children and teachers across the state. Growing Readers I have been able to see firsthand the impact that this project can make in the lives of children, and especially in my context in a school that was in need of a transformation. And so I tried to figure out the role of Christy in this, and I guess you could say we have Christies all across the state. And so if the impact that she's done there in Northwest Georgia and Clark County, if that's happening across the state, then that really encourages me about our future. But, they say that when you get your master's, you should feel like you have mastered that subject. And when you get your specialist or you become a specialist, you should feel like you're a specialist in that area. And then when you get your doctorate, you should feel like you can talk to anybody about anything for about 15 minutes, okay? And so that gives me just a little confidence today. This is my 14th year as a principal. My first 11 years, I was at a school and planned on ending my career at that school. And then in 2019, I was called to a school across town that a year before that, I would have thought it was a joke that I would end up at that school. It was a school that you heard a lot about, and I had been a colleague of several principals of that school during my time at this one school. But I received that call, and it's just amazing how things happen, because when I took on the challenge or accepted the challenge of leading the transformation of this school, it coincided with the rollout of Growing Readers. And so I believe and very confident in leadership, but I've never taught a child to read in my life. And so I could bring the leadership and fill that gap, but then there was still a gap that would be there. And for Growing Readers to come on the scene and to be able to fill that gap in our instruction and really influence our culture at Gaines Elementary School is just something I'm appreciative of. A few years ago, my superintendent had given an address where he was sharing a message about the importance of literacy and the importance of reading. And within that address, he started to share the statistics and the research that we all know. And he talked about the impact of low literacy on the lives of adults. And the normal things that you would hear, higher probability that they would live in poverty, higher probability that they may end up in prison. But then he shared something I'd never heard before. The research says that people who have a low level of literacy have a shorter life expectancy. And that was new for me. I'd never heard that. And just to be honest, fresh out of my doctorate program, I wasn't sure about that research. I wanted to see the research. A couple of months later, my principal supervisor was giving a speech about the importance of literacy and our children learning to read. And then she shared the same research and said that children who don't learn to read later in life, they may die early. And I just could not see the connection. I could see the connection that leads to poverty. I could see the connection that leads to maybe to prison, but I could not see the connection that leads to a shorter life expectancy. So let's just put a pin in that for a second. I taught 11th grade U.S. history at Rome High School. My first year teaching, I had a young man in my classroom, Matthew Allen. I had seen Matthew plenty of times before I started reading because Matthew was a heck of a football player. Matthew could run that ball, but Matthew couldn't read. He was in the 11th grade, U.S. history, and he couldn't read. And I wasn't sure what to do because I had never experienced that on my personal trajectory. We had never discussed that possibility in my teacher ed program. And he couldn't do the work, he couldn't read independently and then do assignments, and so he wasn't doing very well. And I remember going to my mentor, who had been my physical science teacher, because I graduated from Rome High, and I asked him, what happens if I fail Matthew? And he said, well, first of all, the football program is a very powerful group, but you need to maintain the integrity of your classroom, so you're in a tough position. And just to be honest with you, I did for Matthew what everybody had done before. Just passed him on. He played during his senior year, didn't pass the graduation test that we had at that time. So that was in 2000 that I taught him. About 3 years ago, I read in the Rome News Tribune that Matthew had been shot to death during an altercation. And as I read the article, I remember it saying that Matthew was well known to law enforcement because of his experience selling drugs and being involved in burglaries. And immediately it clicked for me, because Matthew did not die early from a lack of reading. He died early from a lack of options. And because he could not read, and because he was allowed to go through school and did not have the experience of teachers who had been trained, like specialists in this room who are training teachers to prepare children to read, Matthew did not have options. And so when I think about the work that you do, the people in this room, I believe very deeply leadership matters, but I want to say today, the work that you are doing, it matters. It matters for the children across the state of Georgia, because it's not just about reading. It's not just about test scores. This is a life and death issue that we are involved in for children. Because at the end of the day, it's not about just preparing children to read. It's about giving them options for their lives, the tools and the skills to be able to go out, to get a job, to take care of their family, and to live a productive life. So people may not tell you, but as I saw today, this banner here where it talks about being involved in service. The work that you're doing is a service to the teachers across the state of Georgia, ultimately to the children of the state of Georgia. And so you might have expected motivation. You might have expected inspiration, but what you have this afternoon is appreciation on behalf of the teachers and the children and the principals of the state of Georgia and all of our schools. Thank you for your service in the Growing Readers Project. The work that you're doing, it matters. Thank you. Thank you.